talk about why I moved to the Netherlands. So there's two facets to this story. There's sort of I don't want to say the official story, but there's the external reason, but there's also the stuff that went on in my life that drove me to that point. So today I'll tell you a bit about both. I'll tell you a bit about my journey because I just want to highlight how each journey is different. Everyone's approach to coming here differs, but I just figured it was time for me to share a bit of mine. Let me take you through this little flashback, right? I think I was maybe 12 or 13. I've always been sort of a TV show buff. I've loved TV my entire life. I grew up watching all kinds of different TV shows. Over time, when the Vampire Diaries premiered, I think I was 10. I waited till I was a bit older. Around the 3rd season of the Vampire Diaries was when I started watching it. I watched the whole thing. I was in love with it. Then came Gossip Girl, came shows like Sex and the City, and from those shows I get the idea of the mythical creature that is New York, which is very funny because I now have read an academic article about the branding of New York and its appearance in movies. So I know that it's all this story and this idea and this sort of big myth of what New York is in the eyes of people that have never been there or in the media portrayal of New York. But back then I was a kid and I fell in love with it. All I ever wanted to do was go to New York City. I don't know if any of you have taken the SATs. I did, and on there you make like your college list. I was really in an American school at the time. I ended my schooling in an American school. I started first of all in a French school when I was really young, then in an IB school, then into American schools. So I was in American school at that period, so I was really into the whole making your college list, taking the SATs, stuff like that, the American way of getting to university. And I remember it was around that time that I was watching these shows and so in love with New York that all of my list was probably universities either in New York or in California, basically. So from there, I was really in love with the idea, and my biggest dream, my life's wish, was to go to NYU, New York University, study journalism. Then I was gonna transition into more lifestyle-based journalism, work for one of those big magazines. That was my dream, right? To become that sort of Devil Wears Prada-esque, let's call it, or even working on like current stories and social stuff like that, stories about people and their lives and their cultures. That was something I was always passionate about and continue to be passionate about, as you can see from the videos I have here. So yeah, that was my dream. Unfortunately, life got in the way. I had a bit of a depressive period in 10th grade and my grades slipped. So I went from being a good student, maybe not great, not perfect, but still quite good, to not so great. And even though I worked really hard to make up my grades in 11th and 12th grade, things didn't go as planned. You know, things happen. Even though you work hard, even though you got your grades back up, at the end of the day, if any of you know the American system, it's an average over 4 years. And that dip was just too low for me to sort of get back from into a really high place that you would need to get into NYU. But I didn't give up hope, and it was my dream, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna fight for this. And I remember my school had a moment of like, you know, one of those big conferences where all kinds of universities come to talk to you about their programs and what you can do there. I went to one of those sort of big admissions meetings, met with a counselor from NYU at the time, and I still remember what he told me, and that's probably why it stung so much. Profile, you fit perfectly into the kind of person we're looking for, but your grades will never match up, whether it's your SAT, whether it's your GPA. And I remember really breaking down at that point. Like I was on the brink of tears. I go to my counselor's office, and she sort of drags this little yellow paper across the table from me and is like, have you considered going to the Netherlands? I was like, wait, what? Hey sis, what's up? No, I didn't think of that at all. But lo and behold, it's where I ended up. And by around that time, I was already considering Europe. I had applied in France because I speak French. I had thought of even applying in Vienna, going to an American university there, stuff like that. I was already exploring other options. I realized I need to broaden my horizons a bit. But I had never really thought of the Netherlands. And then I think it was that weekend I started Googling, and I was like, okay, let me look look at what's at the Netherlands. Found my program, IBCOM, the International Bachelor of Communication and Media here at Erasmus University, and I just fell in love with it. I remember at the time I was right under the threshold of official grades they had, but they had like this questionnaire you had to fill out of where you wanted to be, what you wanted to do, your experience with different cultures, stuff like that. I filled that out, I sent out my application, and I was like, look, if this is meant to be, it'll be. If it isn't, it isn't. And lo and behold, a few weeks later, I get my admissions letter. And now I'm here. And I've been here for almost 4 years, and I don't think I'm looking back. So I guess this is layer of why this happened and how you can just be thankful that life sometimes throws curveballs at you. Because at the end of the day, I already struggle enough with a city the size of Rotterdam as someone who's in a wheelchair or with a crutch. I can't imagine living in New York. It'd probably be too intense for me. So it's really a lesson on what you can do or what happens to you and how what is meant to be will be. Again, the idea of serendipity, which you can check out in my previous video. But that's one side of the story. The other side was really a story of growing up and breaking free and embracing who you truly are. Basically, I'm not going to go too much into it because I don't think this is the time, but I've had quite a few complex family relationships with a lot of my family. I don't know if you're familiar with the saying, hurt people, but due to circumstances, due to personal, cultural approaches and family dynamics and people supporting each other in different thoughts and different ideas, I didn't feel as openly accepted for being different in many ways, for being more open-minded, for being more creative. And it was just an environment of a lot of pressure. I was under this sort of pressure tank. I don't know if you're familiar with pressure cookers, but if you put so much pressure on pressure cookers, at the end of the day, if you don't treat them properly, they can explode. And I really did get to that point, and things were really tough on me, family-wise. I felt misunderstood and disconnected, and it was just time for me to break. And I was really lucky to have my mother, who I still have in my life to this day, and is the best mother anyone could really ask for. She took care of me, she stood by me, and she still does. And it's because of her that I can now thrive and be myself in an environment that welcomes me, that doesn't create all kinds of pressures and like expectations of who I'm supposed to be or what I am or my role because of my societal position or because of who my father is or because of who my mother is or because of like family. I don't know, maybe those of you that are from Middle Eastern cultures like me can relate to that kind of pressure, but I just couldn't handle it. I almost cracked under the ideas of who I'm supposed to be. That was that, and I would just like to say this isn't me blaming anyone. This isn't like a cancel people video or even blaming cultures. It's really about personal circumstances. Everyone's situation is different. Mine was just something that couldn't work for me. That was a bit too much. So yeah, to anyone watching this who may know me or who may be part of my family, I wish everyone peace and love and stability. I know I've reached that in my life. I'm happy with who I am, and I have no resentment or no pain. I'm just thankful to have the life I have today and have built this journey for myself, and happy with where I am. And I hope everyone can reach that kind of peace in their lives, because peace is very important. I've learned over the past few years that you can't live without peace, and I guess I'm making this video as a journey for healing and growth because you need to make peace with your past and your stories. They're not easy, and there's a lot. I'm pretty sure not just me, there's hundreds if not thousands of people who've suffered and struggled in different ways, and it's no one's fault in a way. And this isn't me discrediting abusers or whatever. This is me just saying that maybe as a result of different cycles of trauma, people get hurt, then they hurt their children, then their children hurt their children, and I guess it's really more about the courage to break the cycle instead of judging the cycle. So I guess the message I'm trying to put out here is be who you are, accept yourself, love yourself, accept your challenges. If it's right for you and you're able, release them. Thank you to everyone who's ever supported me. And if you're really curious about moving to the Netherlands, I do have quite a few videos on this channel about that. And if you've made it this far, really appreciate it if you click the subscribe button, maybe give us a like or something, just so we can keep talking. I just figured it was time to share my story, and hopefully this can inspire you to share yours.